Hey guys, today we slip quietly beneath the surface of the ocean, into a place most humans will never see, and even fewer truly understand. You are drifting downward now, suspended in darkness, the weight of the water pressing gently from all sides. Above you, the surface world fades into a distant memory. Below you, the seafloor waits, ancient, patient, and almost impossibly old. A soft cone of light appears ahead, cast by a slow-moving submersible. It glides forward, unhurried, as if it knows this place does not respond well to haste. In that pale glow, something vast begins to emerge. Long, curved structures rise from the seabed, layered and textured, branching and folding in ways that feel familiar, yet wrong. They resemble trees, but they are not made of wood. They resemble forests, but no leaves stir here. They are built instead from time itself. As you continue to descend, the light reveals more of the scene. Towering shapes stretch upward, some as tall as small buildings, their surfaces coated with life, delicate organisms clinging to ancient frames. You realize you are not looking at ruins. You are looking at something alive, something still growing, something that began forming long before the first human ever looked up at the stars. Down here, beneath hundreds of meters of cold, dark water, entire forests exist, hidden from sunlight, shaped by millennia, and quietly sustaining the ocean above. Before we go any deeper, before you settle fully into this slow descent, there's just one small pause. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're settling in, I'd love for you to leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Maybe you're lying in bed, lights dimmed. Maybe you're on a late night drive or resting during a quiet afternoon. Wherever you are, you're part of this journey. Now, return your attention to the darkness below. The submersible's hum is steady and low, almost hypnotic. Its lights glide across the seabed, revealing fine particles drifting like underwater snow. This place feels untouched, as if the world above has never mattered here. And in many ways, it hasn't. These hidden forests began forming thousands of years ago, when coastlines were different, when climates shifted slowly, when the rhythm of the planet moved at a pace far gentler than today. You move closer, and the scale becomes clearer. These are not isolated structures. They stretch outward, connecting to one another, forming vast landscapes of living architecture. Their surfaces are intricate, lattices, ridges, and porous walls that catch the light in soft patterns. Tiny creatures dart in and out of the shadows, while others remain still, embedded into the structures themselves. Everything here feels deliberate, balanced, and strangely calm. You might expect a place so deep to feel empty, but it doesn't. There is a sense of quiet abundance. Life here does not rush. It does not compete loudly for attention. It simply exists, layered upon layer, generation upon generation. These forests are not seasonal. They do not shed leaves or bloom with color. Their growth is nearly imperceptible, measured not in days or years, but in centuries. And yet, over time, that slow persistence has built something monumental. As the submersible drifts forward, you begin to understand why scientists were stunned when they first encountered these formations. They were not supposed to be here. For a long time, the deep ocean was imagined as a barren plain, a vast, empty darkness broken only by the occasional wandering creature. But these forests tell a different story. They reveal that complexity does not require sunlight, and that longevity does not require speed. The light passes over a massive structure that curves like the trunk of an ancient tree. Its surface sparkles faintly, as if dusted with frost. This is no illusion. The material forming these structures is rich in minerals, built molecule by molecule from the surrounding water. Each layer is a record of time passing. Each ridge marks years, sometimes centuries, of uninterrupted growth. In this silence, history accumulates. You may feel a subtle shift now, a sense of awe mixed with calm. This place does not demand your attention, it invites it. The deeper you go, the more the outside world loosens its grip. Deadlines, noise, movement, all of it feels very far away. Down here, nothing happens quickly, and nothing needs to. The submersible pauses, hovering. Its lights widen, revealing an entire expanse of the forest stretching into darkness. You realize that what you are seeing is only a fragment. Beyond the reach of the light, these structures continue, uncounted and unmapped, resting quietly on the ocean floor. They have survived ice ages. They have endured shifts in chemistry and temperature. They have remained unseen while civilizations rose and fell above. And perhaps that is what makes them so powerful. Not their size or their age, but their patience. These forests do not conquer their environment. They adapt to it, slowly and gently, shaping and reshaping themselves over unimaginable spans of time. They remind you that endurance does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers. As you linger here, suspended between water and silence, the light begins to dim slightly. Not because the submersible is leaving, but because your eyes are adjusting, relaxing into the darkness. You don't need to see every detail. It's enough to know that this world exists, quietly thriving beneath the waves. Wherever you are, let the world slow down for a while. Soften your gaze, let the hum of life around you fade, and gently drift with us into tonight's quiet exploration. You drift onward, carried not by currents but by curiosity, as the light continues to skim across the seafloor. What you're seeing now was not always meant to be seen. For most of human history, these depths were unreachable, imagined only as empty darkness. Sailors crossed oceans believing that life ended where sunlight faded. Maps showed blank spaces, labeled with little more than guesses and fear. And yet, beneath those passing ships, these hidden forests were already here, growing, waiting, remembering. The first hints came quietly. Instruments lowered into deep water returned with strange readings. Cameras sent back brief, grainy images that showed shapes no one expected. Structures rising where there should have been flat sediment. Dense clusters of life where scarcity was assumed. At first, these findings were dismissed as anomalies, shadows, tricks of poor visibility. But as exploration deepened and technology improved, the truth became impossible to ignore. The deep ocean was not barren. It was ancient, and it was full. You move slowly through this realization, just as the discoveries themselves unfolded. Over decades, not moments, scientists began to encounter vast formations far below the reach of sunlight. Deep water coral gardens, sprawling meadows of seagrass in unlikely places, and most astonishing of all, immense reefs built not by coral, but by organisms so old and so slow-growing that they seemed almost geological. These were the hidden forests, ecosystems constructed not by trees, but by living beings that blurred the line between animal and architecture. Among them, the most mysterious were the reefs formed by ancient sponges. Unlike the soft, flexible sponges you might imagine near shorelines, these creatures built rigid frameworks, their bodies reinforced with intricate glass-like skeletons. Layer upon layer, generation after generation, they accumulated into towering formations. Some were already ancient when humans first learned to farm. Others began forming before the last ice sheets retreated across continents. You glide closer to one such structure, and the sense of time becomes strange here. These forests do not mark years the way surface ecosystems do. There are no seasons, no cycles of growth and decay visible to the eye. Instead, time is stored quietly in structure. Each millimeter of growth may represent decades. Each ridge, a chapter in Earth's long and shifting story. These organisms endured periods when ocean chemistry changed, when temperatures cooled and warmed, when coastlines moved and currents shifted direction. As research expanded, patterns emerged. These forests were not scattered randomly. They appeared in places where conditions aligned just right. Cold, stable waters rich in dissolved minerals, gentle currents carrying nutrients but not destruction. In such places, life did not need a hurry. It could afford to be patient. And patience, over thousands of years, built complexity that rivaled anything on land. You begin to sense how extraordinary this is. On the surface, forests rise and fall with fires, storms, and human activity. Entire ecosystems can vanish in a single season. Down here, change moves at a different pace. A single destructive event could erase centuries of growth. And yet, untouched, these forests persisted, quietly layering their existence through deep time. These ancient organisms are more than survivors. They are witnesses. Their bodies contain chemical signatures from eras long past. The water that flowed through them carried traces of ancient climates, volcanic events, shifts in ocean circulation. Long before instruments existed, these forests were already recording the planet's rhythms, storing information in their very bones. You float through this understanding, letting it settle gently. The idea that history is not only written in stone or ice, but in living things, things that still breathe, still filter water, still grow imperceptibly in the dark. The ocean floor becomes less a place of emptiness and more a vast archive, filled with living pages. At first, the term forest may seem like a metaphor, but the more you observe, the more fitting it becomes. These structures create vertical space, complexity, shelter. They alter currents, trap particles, and shape the surrounding environment. Just as forests on land influence weather, soil, and life above them, these hidden forests shape the deep-sea world around them. And like their terrestrial counterparts, they are built slowly. No single organism creates the forest. It emerges through accumulation, life building upon life, generation after generation, each contributing a small piece to a structure far greater than itself. There's something profoundly calming about that idea, a reminder that significance does not require speed or visibility. You may notice how the light lingers now, moving more gently, as if respecting the age of what it reveals. Shadows stretch and soften. The forest does not end abruptly. It fades into darkness, suggesting its continuation beyond what you can see. It feels endless, not in size but in time. These discoveries reshaped how scientists understood the deep ocean. No longer a silent void, but a mosaic of ecosystems, some fragile, some resilient, all deeply interconnected. The hidden forests challenge assumptions, forcing a reconsideration of where life can thrive and how long it can endure. As you drift onward, the sense of mystery deepens rather than resolves. Knowing that these forests exist does not make them less enigmatic. If anything, it heightens the quiet wonder. They have been here all along, unnoticed, sustaining life in ways still not fully understood. And perhaps that is part of their lesson, that not everything meaningful announces itself. Some of the most important systems on this planet operate far from view, in silence, over timescales that make human concerns feel fleeting. You continue forward, unhurried, letting the darkness close gently around the edges of the light. The past is not behind you here. It surrounds you, layered and alive, waiting to reveal more. You move closer now, guided by the steady glow of the submersible's lights, toward the true architects of this hidden world. From a distance, the structures looked almost like stone, immobile, ancient, and carved by time. But as the light lingers, subtle details emerge. Fine lattices, delicate ridges, a complexity that stone alone could never produce. These are not rocks. They are living frameworks, built patiently by organisms that have mastered the art of persistence. These forests are shaped, above all, by ancient sponges, creatures so old in evolutionary terms that they predate trees, dinosaurs, even complex life on land. Here, in the deep, they have taken on a role few would expect. They are builders, architects, quiet engineers of the seafloor. Their bodies rise upward, forming rigid towers and walls, some stretching tens of meters above the sediment. Each structure is a collaboration across generations, a slow accumulation of lives layered upon lives. You hover beside one of these formations, and the texture becomes clearer. The surface glints faintly, as if dusted with frost or glass. This is no illusion. These sponges construct their skeletons from silica, dissolved minerals extracted from seawater. Molecule by molecule, they assemble intricate frameworks of glass-like spicules, interwoven into patterns both fragile and strong. It is a material born from water itself, shaped into architecture by life. Unlike fast-growing organisms that race toward reproduction, these sponges grow at a pace that feels almost meditative. A few millimeters, perhaps a centimeter or two in a good year. Growth so slow it defies intuition. But here, slowness is not a disadvantage. It is the very reason these forests exist. With little disturbance and steady conditions, centuries pass, and those millimeters become meters. Millennia pass, and small clusters become towering reefs. You begin to sense the scale of time differently. Each vertical rise represents not ambition, but endurance. Each layer is the result of countless filtering cycles. Water passing through living tissue, nutrients absorbed, minerals laid down. The sponge does not rush. It simply continues. And when one generation ends, another grows atop the remains, using the existing skeleton as foundation. Death does not erase progress here. It becomes structure. The submersible glides slowly along the face of a reef, revealing channels and cavities woven into the framework. These spaces are not empty. They are pathways for water, routes for microscopic particles, corridors through which life flows. The sponge forest alters its environment simply by existing. Currents slow as they pass through the structures. Nutrients are trapped. Sediment settles gently instead of drifting away. The forest reshapes the seafloor without force, without movement, without sound. You may notice how these formations seem almost intentional, as if designed. But there is no plan here, only consistency. The laws of chemistry, the patience of biology, the quiet repetition of growth across time spans far longer than any human memory. In this way, the forest feels less like something built and more like something revealed, an inevitable outcome of life allowed to persist undisturbed. As the light shifts, you see how these sponge-built structures rise into what can only be described as underwater mountains. Their peaks fade into darkness above, their bases anchored deep in sediment below. Some are so large that the submersible feels small beside them, a fleeting visitor passing through a monument that has stood for thousands of years. And yet, despite their size, these architects remain almost invisible to the surface world. They do not break waves. They do not reflect sunlight. Their work unfolds in silence, hidden beneath layers of water and time. Perhaps that is why they feel so calming to observe. There is no urgency here, no display, only steady presence. You drift closer still, noticing tiny imperfections in the glassy skeleton, evidence of past conditions, slight changes in density, subtle shifts in structure, each one a response to the environment at the time it formed. A cooler period, a warmer current, a change in nutrient flow. The sponge recorded it all, not in words, but in form. These forests are not static relics. They are alive, filtering water even now, drawing sustenance from the passing currents. The sponges themselves may live for centuries, but the reefs they build can persist far longer. They are communities stretched across generations, a continuity rarely seen in the natural world. You begin to understand that calling them ancient is not just a reference to age. It is a description of how they exist, slowly, steadily, aligned with the deep rhythms of the planet. They are reminders that life does not always strive upward in bursts. Sometimes it expands quietly, layer by layer, becoming something vast simply by refusing to stop. The submersible pauses again, lights steady, as if offering a moment of respect. In this place, speed feels inappropriate. The forest has waited thousands of years. It can wait a little longer. And as you float there, suspended in the dark beside these glassy towers, you may feel your own sense of time begin to soften. Minutes stretch, thoughts slow. The world above feels distant, almost unreal. Down here, only patience matters. You drift onward, and something begins to change. The structures no longer feel solitary. Movement appears at the edges of the light, quick, subtle, alive. A flicker here, a shadow there. As the submersible glides forward, the forest reveals its true nature. This is not an empty monument built by ancient organisms and then abandoned. This is a living city, quietly awake, sustained by the slow pulse of the deep sea. Within the lattice of the sponge forest, life gathers. Fish slip between glassy pillars, their bodies reflecting faint silver as they pass through narrow corridors. Crabs cling to ledges, tucked into crevices that feel perfectly shaped for their size. Shrimp hover in clusters, moving in small, synchronized bursts. Even creatures that prefer solitude find shelter here, resting in hollows carved by centuries of growth. Every surface seems occupied, every gap purposeful. You begin to see how the forest functions not as a single organism, but as a framework for countless others. The sponge structures create vertical space in a world that is otherwise flat and uniform. On the open seabed, there is little to hide behind, little to cling to. Here, there are walls, arches, overhangs, and shelter pockets. These features transform the environment, turning emptiness into opportunity. The submersible's light lingers on a narrow passage, and a small fish darts out, then disappears again just as quickly. This is a place of refuge. Predators find hunting grounds here, but prey finds protection. The complexity of the forest allows balance to emerge. No single species dominates completely. Instead, life weaves itself into layers, each dependent on the structure provided by the ancient architects. You may notice how the water itself seems different here. Particles drift more slowly. Tiny fragments of organic matter settle gently instead of being swept away. The forest calms the currents, creating zones of stillness where life can take hold. In these pockets, microorganisms flourish, forming the foundation of a food web that extends upward through the entire ecosystem. This is why scientists sometimes describe these forests as underwater cities, not because they resemble human constructions, but because they support dense, diverse populations in an otherwise sparse landscape. Between the towering sponge formations, you find neighborhoods of life, each adapted to a slightly different niche, each relying on the forest's presence to survive. A bivalve rests on a ledge, its shell half buried in fine sediment. A slow-moving starfish clings to a vertical surface, arms extended as it feeds. An octopus, nearly invisible against the textured background, watches from a shaded alcove. None of these creatures built the forest, yet all of them depend on it. You float through this scene, and the silence feels full rather than empty. There is no roar of activity, no frantic motion. Everything here moves with restraint, conserving energy in the cold, dark water. The city does not sleep, but it also does not rush. It exists in a steady state of quiet interaction. The deeper significance begins to emerge. Without these forests, this part of the ocean would be almost lifeless. Flat sediment offers little shelter, few resources. The sponge reefs transform that simplicity into richness. They concentrate life. They create hotspots of biodiversity where evolution can experiment, adapt, and persist. You might imagine the forest as a kind of anchor, holding life in place against the vastness of the deep sea. Larvae drifting in the currents find something to attach to. Juveniles find protection while they grow. Adults find reliable feeding grounds. Generation after generation, life returns to the same structures, reinforcing their importance. The submersible's light sweeps upward, revealing layers upon layers of inhabitants. Some creatures remain motionless, blending perfectly into the glassy surfaces. Others glide slowly, as if following invisible pathways. Each movement feels intentional, unhurried, as though the forest itself sets the tempo. You may begin to feel a sense of calm admiration. This ecosystem does not rely on abundance or excess. It thrives on structure, stability, and time. The forest does not produce food directly in the way some plants do. Instead, it captures what drifts by, filters what passes through, and creates conditions where life can flourish quietly. And in doing so, it becomes an oasis. In the deep ocean, such oases are rare. Vast stretches of seafloor lie nearly barren, punctuated only occasionally by features like this. That makes each forest precious, not only for what it contains, but for what it enables. As you continue to drift, the city stretches beyond the edge of the light. You sense that you are seeing only a fraction of its full extent. Beyond your view, life continues in the same slow rhythm, uninterrupted by your presence. The forest does not acknowledge you. It does not react. It simply continues being what it has always been, a foundation for life, built patiently over thousands of years. And as the submersible moves on, the light softens again, leaving behind a city that never sleeps, yet never hurries, breathing quietly in the dark. You drift a little farther now, and the forest begins to feel less like a place you are visiting and more like a system you're moving through. The structures are still, but the water around them is alive with motion, slow, constant, almost imperceptible. This is where the forest reveals one of its quietest powers. Not shelter, not architecture, but filtration. Every sponge you see is working. Even now, water enters through countless tiny openings across their surfaces, drawn inward by gentle biological currents. Inside, the water passes through intricate channels lined with living cells. Particles are captured, bacteria are removed, organic matter is absorbed. What emerges on the other side is cleaner than what went in. It happens continuously, without pause, without sound. You may begin to sense the scale of this process. One sponge alone filters only a modest amount of water. But a forest is never just one sponge. It is thousands upon thousands of individuals, layered together into vast reefs. Combined, they process staggering volumes of seawater every single day. Tons upon tons of fluid are gently drawn in, cleansed, and released back into the ocean. The submersible's instruments register subtle changes as it moves through the forest. Slight differences in particle density, shifts in water clarity. These are not dramatic enough for the eye to catch, but they matter. Over time, they shape the surrounding environment. The forest becomes a living filter system, improving conditions not just within its boundaries, but far beyond them. You float beside one of the towering structures and imagine the invisible work happening inside. Microscopic life is being sorted, digested, transformed. Nutrients are captured and retained rather than drifting away into the dark. Waste is broken down. Balance is maintained. The forest does not simply exist within the ocean. It actively conditions it. This is where the hidden forests quietly connect to the larger planetary system. By filtering bacteria and organic particles, they influence nutrient cycles that extend far beyond the deep sea. Elements move upward through food webs, eventually reaching surface ecosystems. In this way, the work done in darkness supports life and light. The process is slow, but relentless. There is no on or off switch, no rest cycle. The sponges do not sleep. Their filtration continues day and night, year after year, century after century. It is this consistency that makes their impact so profound. Small actions, repeated endlessly, become planetary in scale. You may notice how calm the water feels here. Currents soften as they pass through the forest, losing energy as they weave around the structures. This slowing allows more particles to settle, more nutrients to be captured. The forest creates a feedback loop. Its presence enhances its own effectiveness. In a world increasingly defined by sudden change, this steady function feels almost reassuring. The forest does not respond to trends or fluctuations. It responds only to the flow of water and time. And as long as those continue, so does its work. The submersible's light reveals faint clouds of particles drifting toward the sponges, disappearing into their surfaces. It is easy to miss if you're not looking closely. Nothing dramatic happens. There is no visible transformation. And yet, something essential is occurring, something the ocean relies on. You begin to understand why scientists describe these forests as natural infrastructure. They are not passive scenery. They are functional systems, performing services that no machine could replicate at this scale or efficiency. They clean, they stabilize, they support, and perhaps most remarkably, they do all of this without ever knowing it. There is no intention, no awareness, just biology responding to environment, repeating patterns refined over millions of years. Life doing what it does best, persisting, adapting, shaping the world quietly. As you drift onward, the forest seems to recede slightly, though its influence does not. The water around you carries the subtle signature of its passage through living filters. Clearer, calmer, balanced. You move through this space slowly, letting the ideas settle. That far beneath the waves, beyond sight and sound, ancient organisms are tirelessly working to keep the ocean healthy. That the planet's most vital systems are often the least visible. The submersible continues forward, its hum steady and low. Behind you, the forest keeps filtering, just as it has for thousands of years, indifferent to observation, devoted only to continuity. And as the light fades gently into the surrounding darkness, you carry with you the sense that nothing here is wasted. Every movement of water, every captured particle, every slow exchange contributes to a balance that reaches farther than you can see. You drift deeper into the quiet, and the forest begins to feel less like a living machine and more like a memory. Not a memory you recall, but one you are moving through. The submersible slows, almost hovering, as if this is a place where haste would feel disrespectful. Here, the ancient structures do more than filter water. They store time. Long after the first forests were discovered, scientists realized that these formations were not only ecosystems, but archives. Their growth was so slow, so consistent, that every layer captured a snapshot of the ocean at the moment it formed. Like rings inside a tree trunk, the structures record history, not in ink or stone, but in chemistry. You imagine the careful work required to uncover these stories. A core sample is taken gently from a reef, drilled with precision so as not to shatter the fragile glassy skeleton. Inside that slender column lies a timeline stretching back thousands of years. Each layer holds subtle clues, traces of temperature, changes in nutrient levels, shifts in ocean chemistry. Together, they form a silent chronicle of Earth's changing climate. The submersible's instruments glow faintly as data streams in. Measurements are taken not just of the forest's shape, but of its composition. Ratios of elements, isotopic signatures, patterns that mean little at first glance, but reveal everything when read correctly. These ancient organisms have been recording the planet's behavior continuously, without intention, without pause. You begin to sense how rare this kind of record truly is. Ice cores capture frozen moments. Sediments tell fragmented stories. But here, in these living structures, the past is still alive. The same organisms that formed centuries ago are often still present, still filtering water, still growing. The line between history and the present blurs. As the light passes over a towering reef, you realize that some parts of it formed before recorded history, before cities, before written language. While human civilizations rose and fell, these forests continued to grow, slowly and steadily, responding only to the rhythms of the ocean. They witnessed shifts in climate that reshaped continents, all while remaining hidden in the dark. You float beside the structure and imagine each layer forming. A cooler period leaves its mark. A warmer current alters growth slightly. A change in ocean circulation modifies the available nutrients. None of this is dramatic. There are no sudden breaks, just subtle variations accumulating over centuries, preserved with remarkable fidelity. This is why these forests matter so deeply to science. They offer context. They show not just what the ocean is doing now, but what it has done before. They help distinguish natural cycles from abrupt disruptions. They provide a baseline, a long, continuous memory against which change can be measured. The idea settles gently. The planet remembers itself through living things. Long-lived organisms become witnesses, holding information simply by existing. The forest does not know it is recording history. It does not choose what to preserve, and yet, it captures more than any conscious observer ever could. The submersible glides along the reef, careful not to disturb even a fragment. The fragility of this archive becomes clear. One careless movement could erase centuries of stored information. Unlike books or digital files, this library cannot be copied easily. Each forest is unique, shaped by its specific location, currents, and history. You may feel a quiet reverence now. Not excitement, not urgency, just respect. This place holds answers to questions not yet asked. It contains data that could help understand future changes, even as it continues its ancient routine. As the light softens and the submersible prepares to move on, the forest remains behind, unchanged by your presence. Its layers continue to grow, almost imperceptibly, adding new chapters to a story that has been unfolding since long before humans began listening. You drift away slowly, carrying the sense that beneath the ocean's surface lies not just life, but memory, and that some of the planet's most important stories are being told in silence, 1 millimeter at a time. You drift onward, and the feeling of timelessness begins to mingle with something more human. Preparation, intention. The forest remains ancient and patient, but now you sense the presence of those who seek to understand it. Far above the seafloor, long before the submersible ever touched the water, a quiet choreography unfolded. Equipment was checked and rechecked. Screens glowed softly in dim rooms. Voices spoke in measured tones. This journey was never rushed. It couldn't be. You imagine the vessel on the surface, gently rising and falling with the waves. Inside, teams moved deliberately, aware that every descent into the deep is a conversation with uncertainty. Here, technology becomes a bridge between worlds, not to conquer the depths, but to approach them carefully, almost apologetically. The submersible you're drifting in now is the product of decades of refinement. It is not large. It does not need to be. Its strength lies in precision. Thrusters whisper rather than roar. Lights are calibrated to reveal without overwhelming. Every movement is calculated to avoid stirring sediment or brushing against fragile structures that took centuries to form. Before this descent, sonar pulses swept silently across the seafloor. Invisible waves fanned outward, returning echoes that sketched the contours of the hidden forest. Peaks emerged on screens. Valleys appeared where none were expected. Slowly, a three-dimensional map took shape, a ghostly outline of a world never touched by sunlight. These maps guided the journey, ensuring the submersible would glide above, not collide. You sense how different this exploration is from the bold narratives of discovery you may have grown up with. There is no planting of flags here, no dramatic declarations. The goal is not ownership, but understanding. Each expedition is planned with restraint, because one careless pass could erase what time took thousands of years to build. As the submersible continues forward, its cameras adjust constantly, compensating for darkness, distance, and drifting particles. High-resolution lenses capture textures so fine they resemble lace. Laser guides project thin lines across surfaces, allowing scientists to measure growth without touching. Data streams upward through kilometers of cable, reaching observers who sit quietly, watching in real time. You imagine their faces, calm, focused, softened by the slow pace of what they're witnessing. There is no room for urgency down here. Everything about the deep demands patience. Decisions are made carefully. Movements are slow. Silence is respected. This is the quiet race you now sense, not against other explorers, but against loss. Technology advances because the forests are vulnerable. The tools must be good enough to document without harming, fast enough to understand before damage occurs elsewhere. Each improvement in imaging, mapping, and control is a small advantage in preserving knowledge. The submersible pauses again, and you feel that delicate balance between curiosity and caution. It is here because humans learned how to look without touching, to observe without disturbing, to let the forest remain the main character in its own story. You drift with it, carried gently along the edge of the ancient structures, aware that every second of footage, every data point, is a gift, not taken, but offered by a world that has no awareness of being seen. As the lights continue forward into the darkness, the hum of technology blends with the vast silence of the deep. Two worlds briefly overlap, one ancient and unchanging, the other fleeting and curious. And for this moment, they move together, slowly, respectfully, into the quiet unknown. You feel the descent deepen now, not just in distance, but in presence. The submersible tilts slightly, and the surrounding darkness thickens, as if the ocean itself is drawing a curtain behind you. Depth numbers change slowly on unseen displays. Hundreds of meters pass beneath you, each one carrying you farther from the surface world and closer to something profoundly old. The hum of the submersible becomes the only constant sound, a low, steady companion. Then, almost imperceptibly at first, the light begins to reveal shapes again. Not vague outlines this time, but detail, texture, form, structure. The hidden forest emerges fully, no longer a suggestion, but a reality unfolding in front of you. The lights widen, and the forest stands revealed. Towering formations rise from the seafloor, their silhouettes layered and complex. Some curve gently like ancient trunks bent by invisible currents. Others branch outward, forming arches and ridges that stretch into the darkness above. The glassy surfaces catch the light and scatter it softly, creating a shimmer that feels unreal, almost dreamlike. You are not looking at a single structure. You are surrounded by a landscape. You drift closer, and the scale becomes undeniable. These formations are vast, larger than houses, some approaching the height of small buildings. And yet, despite their size, they feel delicate. The latticework of their skeletons is intricate beyond expectation, woven into patterns that look almost intentional, as if designed rather than grown. Every ridge, every hollow, every curve is the result of countless years of slow, uninterrupted life. This is the first moment when the forest feels truly tangible. Not an idea, not a scientific curiosity, but a place you're inside of. The cameras capture everything in astonishing clarity. Fine details emerge, tiny organisms clinging to the surfaces, minute variations in texture where growth changed subtly over centuries. You see layers stacked upon layers, each one marking a passage of time so long it's difficult to comprehend. This is not just ancient, it is deep time made visible. You may feel a quiet awe settle in your chest, but it's a gentle kind of awe. There is nothing overwhelming here. The forest does not demand attention. It simply exists, and in doing so, it invites stillness. The longer you look, the more your thoughts slow, as if your mind is matching the forest's pace. The submersible glides between two towering structures, leaving generous space on either side. Even the smallest contact could cause damage that would not heal in a human lifetime. The pilots know this. Their movements are almost ceremonial, precise, restrained, respectful. As you pass through this corridor of ancient growth, the light reveals how the forest extends in all directions. It does not form a neat boundary. It fades gradually into darkness, suggesting that what you see is only a fraction of what exists. Beyond the reach of the cameras, the forest continues, uninterrupted, stretching across the seafloor like a submerged continent. You may notice how quiet it feels inside you now. The world above, its noise, its urgency, its constant motion, feels distant and thin. Down here, time behaves differently. Moments stretch, breath slow. The forest does not care how long you stay. It has known far longer waits. The submersible pauses, hovering in place. The lights remain fixed, illuminating a single towering formation. You take it in fully, the subtle curves, the countless tiny lives embedded in its structure, the sense of continuity that radiates from it. This organism began growing when the world was different, and it will likely continue long after today has faded into memory. There's a fragility here that feels almost sacred. Despite their age and size, these forests are vulnerable. One careless movement, one harsh disturbance, could shatter what took millennia to build. And yet, untouched, they endure. As the submersible slowly pulls back, the forest does not change. It does not react. It does not acknowledge the moment. It simply remains steady and ancient, breathing water through glassy bones. And as the light begins to soften once more, you carry the image with you. The moment when the hidden forest revealed itself fully, not as a mystery anymore, but as a quiet, living truth beneath the ocean. You drift gently away from the awe of revelation, and something subtle begins to shift. The forest is still here, ancient, intricate, alive, but a new awareness settles in. Not everything that reaches this depth arrives with patience. Not every visitor moves as slowly or as carefully as you do now. Some arrive with force, unseen and unstoppable, leaving marks that linger far longer than their presence. The submersible glides onward, and the light catches something that feels wrong. A break in the pattern. Where the forest once rose in layered complexity, there is now emptiness. Fragments lie scattered across the seafloor, jagged, irregular pieces of glassy skeleton, half buried in disturbed sediment. The silence here feels heavier. You are witnessing absence. This is the invisible threat that haunts these forests. Not storms, not predators, but contact. Heavy equipment dragged blindly across the seabed. Vast nets designed for efficiency, not precision. When they pass through a forest like this, they do not discriminate. Towers that took thousands of years to grow are snapped in seconds. Entire sections are flattened, reduced to debris that will not recover in any meaningful human time frame. You may find it difficult to reconcile how something so distant, so deep, can be so vulnerable. But the deep ocean is not protected by its remoteness. The reach of human activity extends far beyond sight. Bottom trawling, in particular, leaves scars that resemble clear cutting on land. Wide swaths of seafloor are scraped clean, their complexity erased in moments. The submersible's light traces one such scar. The contrast is stark. On one side, the forest stands tall, layered and alive. On the other, a barren stretch of sediment, broken fragments scattered like bones. There is no gradual transition, just before and after, presence and loss. And this is only one thread. You drift onward, and the water itself begins to feel different. Not visibly, but chemically. Far above, the atmosphere has been changing, absorbing, and releasing gases at a pace the planet has rarely experienced. The ocean takes in much of this change, quietly buffering the surface world. But that absorption alters the water's chemistry, making it subtly more acidic over time. For organisms that build glassy skeletons from dissolved minerals, this shift matters deeply. The balance they rely on becomes harder to maintain. Growth slows. Structures weaken. What once formed steadily now struggles against conditions it was never meant to face so quickly. You float beside a towering formation and imagine this stress accumulating. Not dramatic, not sudden, just a gentle pressure applied continuously. Decade after decade, the forest does not collapse all at once. It thins. It falters. Its growth becomes more fragile, more uncertain. There are no alarms here, no visible warnings. The thread is slow and invisible, woven into the water itself. And because these forests grow so slowly, they cannot adapt quickly enough to sudden change. What took millennia to build can be undermined in a single century. You may feel a quiet tension now, not sharp or urgent, but heavy. The realization that something so patient can be undone by something so careless. That silence does not equal safety. That endurance has limits. The submersible pauses again, hovering between what remains and what once was. The forest still stands in many places. It is not gone, but it is no longer invulnerable. Its future depends on forces far removed from this dark, tranquil world. As the light softens, you are left with a difficult truth. The hidden forests beneath the ocean are ancient, resilient, and quietly powerful, but they are not beyond reach. And what happens far above the surface echoes all the way down here into the deepest, most patient corners of the planet. You drift a little farther, and the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. The submersible moves slowly, deliberately, as if giving you time to absorb what lies ahead. The light widens, revealing two worlds pressed uncomfortably close together. On one side, the forest still stands, layered, complex, quietly alive. On the other, there's only damage. This is where the ocean carries its scars. The intact forest rises gently from the seafloor, its glassy structures catching the light in soft, fractured patterns. Life clings to every surface. Fish move calmly through familiar corridors. The water here feels settled, almost peaceful. Then the light crosses an invisible boundary, and everything changes. The structures vanish. In their place, the seafloor lies flat and broken. Shards of silica skeletons litter the sediment like the remnants of a shattered cathedral. Once towering formations are reduced to rubble, their intricate frameworks crushed beyond recognition. There is no gradual decline here, no slow fading. The transition is abrupt, almost shocking in its clarity. You hover in silence, taking in the aftermath. This is not decay. It is not natural erosion. This is destruction that happened quickly, violently, and without awareness of what was being lost. The forest did not die of old age. It was erased. You may notice how still this area feels. Not calm, but empty. Without the forest structure, currents move differently here. Sediment drifts freely, resettling again and again, never finding stability. There are fewer places for life to attach, fewer shelters, fewer reasons for organisms to linger. What once functioned as a city has become an open plain. The most unsettling part is not what you see, but what you don't. There is no sign of recovery, no young structures rising from the debris, no gradual rebuilding. These forests cannot simply regrow. Their architects move too slowly. What was lost in minutes would take thousands of years to replace. If conditions were perfect, which they no longer are, you float closer to the rubble, and the scale of loss becomes clearer. Each fragment represents centuries of growth. Each broken piece once filtered water, sheltered life, stored memory. Now those functions are gone. Not paused. Gone. The submersible's instruments record the scene with quiet precision, documenting what remains. This data matters. It becomes evidence, proof that these forests existed, and proof of how easily they can be destroyed. Without records like this, the scars might never be acknowledged. The ocean would simply absorb the damage in silence. You begin to understand why this is often described as an underwater clear-cut. On land, the loss of a forest is visible, immediate, undeniable. Here, the damage happens out of sight. The surface world feels no tremor, hears no crash. And yet, the impact is just as profound. You drift back slightly, allowing both scenes to fill your view. The living forest and the scar beside it. Side by side, they tell a story without words. One represents patience, continuity, and quiet abundance. The other represents interruption, absence, and loss that will outlast generations. There is a heaviness here, but it is not loud or dramatic. It is subdued, like grief carried quietly. The forest does not protest. It cannot. It simply bears the mark and remains where it can. As the light slowly dims and the submersible prepares to move on, the contrast lingers in your mind. This is what is at stake. Not just beauty, but function. Not just history, but future possibility. You leave the scar behind, knowing it will not change when you are gone. And somewhere beside it, the remaining forest continues its slow work, filtering water, sheltering life, holding memory, aware of nothing, vulnerable to everything. You drift onward from the scarred seafloor, and slowly, the feeling begins to shift again. The heaviness remains, but it is joined now by something steadier. Purpose. Far from the quiet destruction, there are people who have seen these forests and chosen not to look away. You sense their presence not here in the darkness, but above, in the careful decisions that shape what happens next. The submersible rises slightly, hovering near an intact stretch of forest. Its lights remain gentle, restrained. This careful approach is no accident. It reflects a growing understanding that these places are not just discoveries. They are responsibilities. Once seen, they cannot be unseen. Once understood, they demand protection. You imagine the scientists who first returned from the deep with footage of these forests. Their voices calm, but insistent as they explain what they had found. Structures thousands of years old. Ecosystems built by organisms growing mere millimeters per year. Habitats unlike anything previously documented. Slowly, the message spread beyond research vessels and laboratories. Conversations began, not hurried, not dramatic, deliberate, measured. Data was gathered, maps were drawn, evidence accumulated. The forests were no longer abstract ideas. They became defined places with boundaries, histories, and measurable value. You sense how this work unfolds. Researchers collaborate with conservationists, translating complex science in a language that can guide policy. They speak of vulnerability, of irreplaceability, of timelines that stretch far beyond economic cycles. Each argument is built carefully, knowing that exaggeration would weaken the cause, but understatement could doom it. Unexpected voices join the effort. Fishers who once passed unknowingly over these forests begin to understand what lies beneath. Some remember places where nets came back torn or unusually heavy, never knowing why. Now they see the images. They recognize the loss. And some choose to become protectors instead of participants in destruction. You feel the shift from isolation to connection. Protection does not come from a single group. It emerges when knowledge spreads quietly, when understanding replaces distance. Marine protected areas are proposed, not as barriers, but as agreements, lines drawn on maps that say, here, patience matters more than profit. The submersible drifts alongside the forest, as if acknowledging this unseen network of care. Its presence here is part of that effort. Every image captured, every measurement recorded, strengthens the case for preservation. This is how guardianship looks in the deep ocean. Not dramatic rescue, but quiet persistence. You imagine meetings where these forests are discussed, rooms far from the sea, filled with maps and data rather than water and silence. The challenge is always the same, protecting something most people will never see. But the argument is simple in its own way. What cannot be replaced must be preserved. You may feel a subtle reassurance now. Not certainty, but possibility. Some forests have already gained protection, boundaries established, destructive practices restricted or banned. In these places, the ancient structures are allowed to continue their slow work, uninterrupted. The forest beneath you remains unaware of these efforts. It does not know it as guardians. It does not respond with gratitude or change. It simply continues, as it always has. And perhaps that is the quiet reward. Protection allows continuity. It allows the story to keep unfolding. As the submersible begins to move on once more, the light sweeps gently across the living structures. You carry with you the understanding that preservation does not always announce itself. Sometimes, it takes the form of restraint, of choosing not to act, of letting ancient systems remain undisturbed. And somewhere above, people you will never meet continue working quietly so that this forest, and others like it, can keep breathing in the dark, unbroken. You drift gently onward, and the forest begins to speak, not in words, but in sound. At first, it seems impossible. This place feels too still, too slow, too quiet to produce anything resembling noise. And yet, as the submersible settles into position, something new enters the experience. A listening device is released softly into the water, descending until it hangs motionless among the ancient structures. The lights dim slightly. Attention shifts from sight to sensation. And then you hear it. A faint clicking, rhythmic and irregular, like distant rain tapping on glass. Somewhere within the forest, tiny creatures move, their movements translated into sound. Shrimp snap their claws, creating sharp pulses that echo softly through the water. Small fish brush past structures, producing subtle vibrations. Even the slow movement of currents through the sponge framework creates a low, almost breathing hum. The forest is not silent. It has a voice. You float there, listening, as the hydrophone captures layers of sound woven together into a gentle, continuous tapestry. No single noise dominates. Nothing startles. Instead, the sounds overlap and fade, creating a steady acoustic presence that feels strangely calming. This is the sound of life existing without urgency. You begin to notice patterns. The clicks cluster, then thin out. A faint rustling emerges, then dissolves back into stillness. These sounds are not random. They reflect activity, feeding, movement, interaction, occurring at a pace perfectly matched to the deep sea environment. For the organisms living here, sound is information. It travels farther than light in water, bending gently around structures, carrying subtle signals. Predators listen. Prey listens. The forest itself shapes how sound moves, absorbing some frequencies, reflecting others. Its architecture creates acoustic spaces just as it creates physical ones. You imagine this place without the forest. The sound would scatter, thin, disappear. But here, within the glassy towers and layered walls, sound lingers. It gives the ecosystem a kind of presence that extends beyond what the eye can see. The submersible remains still, allowing the recording to continue uninterrupted. This listening feels intimate, almost personal. You are not observing from a distance now. You are sharing space, tuned into a world that normally unfolds far beyond human perception. There is something deeply reassuring about these sounds. They confirm what the stillness alone might hide, that the forest is active, responsive, alive, not frozen in time, but gently moving within it. You may notice how your breathing slows as you listen. The clicks and hums form a kind of rhythm, unhurried and steady. It is not music, but it has cadence. It invites stillness. It encourages rest. This is why researchers sometimes describe these recordings as soundscapes rather than data. They capture not just activity, but atmosphere. They remind us that ecosystems are not only seen and measured, but felt. The hydrophone continues to listen, storing hours of sound that will later be analyzed, compared, studied. Changes in these soundscapes can reveal shifts in biodiversity, disruptions, recovery. Sound becomes another way the forest tells its story. Eventually, the device is retrieved, rising slowly back toward the submersible. The lights brighten slightly, and the visual world returns. But the memory of the sound remains, lingering softly in your awareness. You drift onward, knowing now that even in the deepest darkness, life announces itself, quietly, gently, persistently. The forest breathes not only through water, but through sound, filling the silence with proof of its continued existence. You drift forward once more, carrying the soft echoes of the forest soundscape with you. The clicks and murmurs fade into memory, replaced by a quieter question that hangs gently in the water. After everything you have seen, the age, the fragility, the scars, can anything here truly heal? The submersible's path leads you toward a place that offers a cautious answer. The light settles over a section of forest that feels different. Not dramatic, not lush, just subtle. The structures here are smaller, less towering, their edges less worn. At first glance, it might seem unremarkable, but the longer you observe, the more you sense a delicate shift. This is a forest that has been given time, protected from disturbance, allowed to exist without interruption. You hover and look closely. New growth is visible, not in sweeping changes, but in fine details. Thin extensions emerging from older skeletons. Slight thickening along edges where layers are slowly forming again. These changes are almost invisible unless you know what to look for. And that is precisely the point. Recovery here does not announce itself. It whispers. You imagine the moment protection began. Lines drawn on charts. Agreements made far above the surface. From a forest perspective, nothing happened. There was no signal, no change in the water, only the absence of disturbance. No scraping nets, no crushing contact, just continuity restored. And in that quiet, life resumed its ancient rhythm. You watch small organisms settling onto exposed surfaces, attaching themselves gently. Larvae drifting in from elsewhere find stable ground. The forest begins, millimeter by millimeter, to reclaim space. This is not regeneration as humans usually imagine it. There is no rapid rebound, no visible transformation, There is simply persistence, uninterrupted. The submersible's cameras linger on an experimental area nearby. Here, researchers have attempted something careful and restrained. Broken fragments of sponge skeleton, salvaged from damaged areas, have been gently repositioned. Not rebuilt, not forced into shape, just placed where they might serve as a foundation. Over time, living tissue begins to grow across these fragments. Not quickly, not reliably, but sometimes slowly it happens. New growth anchors itself to the old, continuing a story that was nearly cut short. These efforts are modest, intentionally so. No one pretends to rebuild a forest by hand. The goal is not control, but assistance, giving life a chance to do what it has always done. You may feel a quiet sense of relief settle in. Not optimism in the loud, confident sense, but something steadier. Evidence that protection matters, that restraint works, that even the slowest systems can respond when given space. The forest here is not what it once was. It may never fully return to its previous form, but is alive, and in the deep ocean, that is no small thing. Recovery does not erase loss, but it does soften its edges. You drift gently, watching the faint signs of renewal. Tiny lives finding purchase, structures thickening imperceptibly, a future forming at a pace that feels almost timeless. As the submersible begins to move on, the light fades slightly, leaving the recovering forest behind. It does not need observation. It only needs time. And for now, time is being allowed to pass undisturbed. You drift onward, carrying with you the quiet evidence of recovery, and your thoughts begin to stretch outward, beyond this forest, beyond this moment. The submersible moves slowly, as if giving space for reflection. What you have seen here is not only a story of hidden life, but a lesson written across centuries. These forests are not just ecosystems. They are records, regulators, and reminders. As the light glides over the ancient structures one last time, you sense how many roles they play at once. They are habitats, supporting countless lives in the deep. They are filters, quietly cleaning vast volumes of water. They are archives, holding memories of climates long past. And together, they form something larger than the sum of their parts, a stabilizing presence within a changing planet. You may begin to see how these forests fit into the broader rhythms of Earth. Carbon moves through the ocean in subtle ways, dissolved, transformed, stored. The sponge forests participate in this flow, capturing organic matter and locking it into long-lived structures. Over time, this process removes carbon from circulation, storing it on the seafloor for centuries. Not dramatically, not efficiently by human standards, but steadily. This slow sequestration matters. It adds another layer to the planet's natural balance, one that operates quietly and without attention. The forests do not solve global problems on their own, but they contribute patiently alongside countless other systems that together sustain life. You also sense the genetic richness held here. Each forest is a living library, filled with organisms adapted to extreme conditions: cold, darkness, pressure. Their survival strategies are the result of millions of years of evolution. Within their cells lie solutions to challenges humans are only beginning to understand. And once lost, that information cannot be recovered. The forest's value is not only scientific or ecological, it is philosophical. It challenges the idea that importance requires visibility, that progress must be fast, that systems which operate beyond human timescales are expendable. Here, significance is measured in endurance, in quiet function, in continuity. You may notice how this perspective softens your thoughts. The world above often feels rushed, fragmented, demanding constant response. Down here, the lesson is different. Lasting systems are built slowly. They persist not through force, but through balance. They do not react to every change. They absorb, adjust, and continue. The submersible's path begins to arc upward slightly, signaling that this part of the journey is nearing its end. The forest fades gradually into darkness, but its presence lingers in your awareness. You understand now that protecting these hidden worlds is not an act of nostalgia. It is an investment in stability. By preserving what is ancient, you preserve function. By allowing slow systems to endure, you maintain options for the future. The forest does not belong to the past alone. Its work continues forward, shaping conditions for life yet to come. As the light dims further, the lesson settles quietly. Some of the most important forces on this planet operate unseen, unheard, and uncelebrated. They ask for nothing more than time and restraint. And in giving them that, you protect not only a hidden forest beneath the ocean, but a piece of the planet's capacity to endure. You drift gently upward now, not in distance, but in perspective. The submersible's lights soften as the forest begins to recede behind you, fading back into the darkness that has protected it for so long. What remains is not an image, but a connection between worlds that rarely acknowledge one another. As you rise, your mind begins to place what you've seen beside something more familiar. You imagine a forest on land, tall trunks rooted in soil, light filtering through leaves, the slow exchange of breath between trees and sky. Above ground, forests shape climate, store carbon, shelter life, and soften the planet's extremes. They are recognized, named, protected, at least in principle. And now, beneath that image, another forest overlays it. One without leaves, without sunlight, without sound carried by air. A forest built from glassy skeletons and patience, filtering water instead of air, shaping currents instead of winds. Different in form, but strikingly similar in purpose. You sense the symmetry. On land, forests help the planet breathe. Below the waves, these hidden forests do the same, quietly maintaining balance, cleaning vast systems, supporting life far beyond their boundaries. One is celebrated, the other remains largely unknown. Yet both are essential. The submersible pauses briefly, as if allowing this realization to settle fully. The deep ocean does not exist in isolation. It is connected to coastlines, to weather, to the air above you now. What happens in one world echoes into the other, even if that echo takes years to be felt. You may feel a subtle shift in how you think about scale. Importance is not defined by size alone, nor by visibility. Some of the planet's most vital systems operate far from view, sustained by organisms that will never be named, never be noticed individually. And yet, together, they hold the planet steady. As the forest fades completely from the light, you realize it does not need to be watched to matter. It only needs to be left intact. Protection, in this sense, is an act of humility, recognizing that not everything exists for human use or understanding. The submersible begins its slow ascent, leaving the forest exactly as it was before your arrival. No trace of your presence remains. That feels right. This place does not ask to be changed, only allowed to continue. And somewhere, far above, forests sway in the wind, performing their own ancient work. Two worlds, separated by depth and darkness, yet bound by function and time. The connection holds. You no longer need to picture the forest clearly now. Let its details soften, like an image slowly dissolving at the edge of sleep. The towering shapes blur into gentle impressions. The glassy textures fade into calm, abstract forms. What remains is the feeling of slowness, of patience, of quiet continuity. Imagine yourself floating effortlessly, not descending or rising, just suspended in a comfortable stillness. The ocean around you is calm. The surface world feels distant and unimportant for the moment. There is nothing you need to do, nothing you need to remember. The forest continues its work without you. Each breath you take feels a little slower now, a little deeper. Like the forest, you don't need to hurry. Time stretches kindly here. Thoughts drift past without asking for attention. You can let the sounds fade too. The hum of the submersible, the clicks of distant life, until only a soft inner quiet remains. A quiet that feels safe. A quiet that feels complete. Somewhere beneath the waves, ancient forests continue filtering, sheltering, remembering. Somewhere above, forests breathe in the light. And here, in this moment, you are allowed to rest between them. Let your mind settle. Let your body grow heavy. Let the day loosen its hold.